Then there's another section where we're again drawing on the preamble of the Earth Charter, where we use where we talk about the global situation and the challenges ahead, and we kind of merge those two sections. And that section of the report has three parts. Or four parts, maybe it'd be easier to describe it as four parts. One is a discussion of the misleading assumptions of contemporary economics and finance. And that goes back to the scientific understanding of the universe and the human place in it, and tries to show that the assumptions of those disciplines rest upon premises, again, from the 18th century that are contrary to contemporary science. And so relying on economics as the principle, as you were, mediator of thought between humans and the earth, has proven to be unable to address the really catastrophic problems that we have. And so we're suggesting in that short chapter that the premises of economics have to be really pretty radically rethought. And then that's followed by a chapter that draws very heavily on, or is written by, Peter Victor, who's a professor at York University in Toronto, and Timothy Jackson, who's a professor at Sussex in the Czech, that's either Surrey or Sussex.
I think it's the University of Sussex in Surrey.
Yeah, I think you're right, but we need to have that right if we use this. So I'll say it and you can edit it out. Tim Jackson at the University of Sussex in Surrey, England, or Surrey, UK. So that chapter basically is revolutionary, because it says what we should be doing in macroeconomic policy is not moving toward more growth in the industrialized countries, but moving toward steady state or even degrowth societies, and that we can do that in a way that doesn't bring on social disaster, right? That we can have a planned, the subtitle of Peter Victor's book is Management by Design, Not Disaster, right? So we have ways of thinking and using the tools of macroeconomics and governmental policy in general to design a safe landing, right? Or at least a not completely turbulent landing. And that's done by trying to use policy to basically try to stabilize population, stabilize greenhouse gas emissions at a level that the planet can handle, right? Use increases in productivity to allow people to have more leisure as opposed to more income, and so forth. So it's a kind of an attempt to redesign the future pretty promptly because of the pressing nature of the climate crisis, but not have a social disaster in the short run. And then that's followed by a section written by John Fullerton, who I mentioned earlier, which is on finance and really emphasizes that the financial system it evolved more or less to serve the economic system, and the financial system has a couple of features that are quite dangerous. So we can think of the Earth as having ecological overshoot, right? We're using more Earth than there is, right? And so we're in, this uses Walker, Nagel, and Rees's footprint analysis, right, to talk about this. And what John Fullerton suggests is, well, if there's ecological overshoot, there must be financial overshoot, right? There's more, in a sense, there's more money than Earth, right? So if you say, okay, we can only burn so many more million tons of carbon, or emit only many more million tons of carbon, then there are known fossil reserves that can't morally or hopefully legally be burned, right? So they're on the balance sheets of governments and corporations, and if they're never allowed to burn them, their value falls to zero. Okay, so that's what's called financial overshoot. It's having investments in things which push us into unjust or unsafe space, right? And so they would be particularly unsafe space. Those would be pretty radical revisions of what we think of as wealth. The other really interesting thing that John has is that if there are ecological limits, there must be limits to investment. Right? That is, the total amount of money that can be invested needs to be regulated and overseen by the public, because an investment in anything, even an investment in my sitting here and talking to you in this room is using energy, right? So we have to think about the total amount of energy use that the planet can handle, and then we have to allocate that in some way, right? But however we end up allocating it, there's a limit. So you get to the pretty radical conclusion that you need to have oversight of quantity and quality of investments of the really big corporations in the world, maybe the top 1,000 or so. So this is another pretty revolutionary idea, right? But we're in a revolutionary time, right? And so we're trying to just lay out a blueprint for this. We're not saying it's the only way it could possibly be thought of, but we're trying to stimulate a global dialogue around these issues, and so this is one of the conclusions that we came to. And then there's another one, also pretty radical from many people's points of view, that we need to move beyond the nation state. The nation state is a big problem because the Earth isn't divided up into manageable parts. The Earth is a set of systems, or one system, that is in continuous interaction.